Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Interviewing Wednesdays. We're very glad you're with us today. It is August 11th, 2021. For those people on Zoom, please, if you have questions, please just send your questions into the chat box and we'll get to your questions at the very end of this presentation. The presentation is pre-recorded, so there won't be any breaks during the presentation for questions, but you can ask them at the very end. Also, for those watching on Facebook, please just send your questions in the comment field. I am monitoring that feed, and I'll be sure we'll get those questions answered at the very end of the presentation. Please note this event is being recorded and is currently live on Facebook. The recording will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, if you have your microphone or camera on, you give consent for your name and picture to appear. Please note that any comments you put in the chat in the Zoom chat window will not appear in the recording. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeff Morris. Back in 2008, I started a website called careerdfw.org, a website to help those in the Dallas-Fort Worth area by putting everything a job seeker needed to know about their job search in one place. In 2012, I started a second website, careerusa.org, to help people outside the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I have written a book called What I've Learned About Your Job Search That You May Not Know. It is available on Amazon. Since 2007, I've been facilitating and leading the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. The group's been around since the late 1990s. I took it over in 2007, and I'll tell you about our upcoming programming this Friday that we're going to have this Friday at the very end of this session. And since 2017, I've been a member of the practice interview team. I'm sure lots of people spend a lot of time working on the resume, working on LinkedIn. How much time do you spend actually practicing your interview skills? And we'll hear more about the practice interview team here in just a second. Well, when we started this 16, 17 months ago, I asked two different people to talk about LinkedIn, talk about interviewing. Mark McDonald, who leads the practice interview team, and Walt Glass, who leads the interview success workshop. So just a reminder, this is a pre-recorded video. We'll take all the questions at the very end. So as you think of something, please just put your questions right into the chat box.
Good afternoon, everybody. And I've been involved in the PIT crew since 2013 after I got laid off for the third time from my career in telecommunications equipment industry. And so I've been in your shoes many times. I even, towards the end there, took a bridge job and worked as a financial advisor for a couple of years and then officially retired in May of 2018. But from 2013 on, I was involved in the PIT crew, and from 2014, I started leading it. And I'm looking forward to getting back face to face. As Jeff mentioned, every meeting when we used to, good afternoon, everybody. And I've been involved in the PIT crew since 2013 after I got laid off for the third time from my career in the telecommunications equipment industry. And so I've been in your shoes many times. I even, towards the end there, took a bridge job and worked as a financial advisor for a couple of years and then officially retired in May of 2018. But from 2013 on, I was involved in the PIT crew, and from 2014, I started leading it. And I'm looking forward to getting back face to face. As Jeff mentioned, every meeting when we used to meet face to face, we'd have an education session at the end where we would discuss different things about interviewing. And we just talked about whatever was on people's minds who attended the meeting, and there'd be 30 or 40 people there. When we went virtual, we formalized that. So now we have these 13 sessions, and in a moment, I'll go over what we're covering today. I do want to say for this meeting that besides leading the PIT crew, I also coach, and I coach on one topic, and that topic is, why did you leave your last job? How to answer that question. And as you'll see in my presentation material today, that's one of the 4 questions that you need to be well prepared to answer. And if that's going to cause you some anxiety or some pause or some consternation, then let's have a discussion about it one-on-one, and we'll storyboard how to answer that question and any follow-up questions that are generated by your situation. So I encourage you to link in with me, and there's my LinkedIn profile. If you search in LinkedIn for Mark A. McDonald or PIT crew, you're going to find me pretty quickly. Put that middle initial in there and that'll help. And just send me a brief note that says we met on Interview Wednesday, and that's good enough for me. I'll add you to my network, and that'll help you a lot with finding contacts in your target companies in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Thanks, Jeff. Walt, you're up.
Back in 2000, after I've been working for 25 years for a company and got laid off, and inside of that company, I had spent 3 years in leadership development. Part of that was training managers and everybody really how to interview and how to interview from, how to select the right candidate, things like that. Well, I got my first interview after I got laid off for my next job. And if you were to give me a grade on that interview, it would be a Z minus. It was really bad. And so I walked out of there saying, sitting on this side of the desk is quite different than sitting on the other side of the desk. And so I said, what is the good thing to do is to learn really how to be an excellent candidate and sell myself, which is what I am, who I am, what I do, and how I can help. Put myself in the interviewer's perspective during my interview, because after I got a job and went through this, I became a much better interviewer with candidates because I understood their perspective. So let's switch roles. Now let's understand their perspective so we can be more effective in our interview. And the workshop really focuses on how we can sell the I am, I do, I help model. We'll talk a little bit about that today. But when you sum all that up with your energy and enthusiasm gained through preparation and practice, resulting in confidence in your interview, you can really differentiate yourself in a very positive way from those other candidates. And so look me up on the About section on my LinkedIn, tells you about the workshop. It's free, or you don't have to pay. Be glad to have you participate and sign in. We do this in a very informal environment. We really focus on the basics and the fundamentals and understanding how we can differentiate ourselves with those things. And then you can also come back a couple more times if you like, whatever you want. After you practice the fundamentals some, then we can get into interviewing like we do at the Pit Crew, which I hardly recommend you do. But I suggest you find the fundamentals first before you get to the Pit Crew. But nonetheless, I hardly recommend the Pit Crew because you need to go through some mock interviews with a panel. And the more you practice, the better you get. So we'd enjoy having you sign up. Come on down, because in the workshop, we can experience learning without squirming.
Very good. Thank you very much. Well, today we're on session number 2, preparing for a specific interview and networking part 1. So gentlemen, please take it away.
So this is session 2 of the 13 sessions. I'll show you the whole list in the next slide. We've got 3 topics we're going to talk about: preparing for a specific interview, and a subset of that is if you don't have a lot of time, what you should focus on, and then networking. And so most of the day, if you just look at the slide count, it's going to be on networking. Let me go on to the next slide. Yeah, so here's all 13 of the topics. And last week we did preparing in general. How do you prepare to interview? So that's something you can do any day of the week, any time of the day. Be thinking about, if you get asked this question, how you're going to answer that question, preparing star stories, and so on and so forth. Today we're going to talk about a specific interview. Now you have a job description and maybe you have an interview scheduled. And so what, in addition to the general preparation, are you going to do? And then we'll go on from there to talk about star stories and video interviewing and analyzing the job description. And that'll wrap up the first 5, or the top 5, which are all about preparing to interview. So out of the 13 sessions, we spend 5 sessions on getting prepared to interview. Then after that, we'll do another 5 sessions on effective interviewing. And we'll talk about how to open and close an interview, and how to follow up, and how to discuss compensation, and how to demonstrate enthusiasm. A lot of good topics in this middle 5. And then the final group of 3, which wraps up the series, are some advanced topics that build on the previous knowledge that you've gained. Target companies and informational interviews leads that off. And then the very last session, we talk about common mistakes, because you practice, because knowing what you should do does not mean you will actually do it in an interview. And knowing that you shouldn't do something in an interview doesn't mean you won't do it. And so we'll catch you up on common mistakes that almost everybody makes, and that'll wrap up the 13 sessions. Okay, come on, there we go. So let's get started with a poll that I just jumped over. And so the question is, and you can answer it on the poll here, and Jeff will tell you what to do if you're on Facebook, is how much time do you typically spend preparing for a 1-hour interview? So this is a specific interview. Let's say it's it might be a panel, or it could be one-on-one, but it's going to be an hour long. How much time would you spend preparing for that?
For those people watching on Facebook, you can just enter your A, B, C, D, or E in the comment field, please.
This is what we're going to talk about today, is preparing for a specific interview. So when we're done, you can think about, now how much time are you going to prepare for that 1-hour interview? And it depends on a lot of things. Of course, there's no right answer to this question. More preparation is better. Let's find out what's important. Okay, so I'm going to set up the situation, then Walt's going to talk about preparing to interview, and then I'll come back and do a little part. So we'll go back and forth here as we go through the topics, and then we'll each take our turn talking about networking. But let me set up what we talked about last week, and then we'll jump off and go into this week's topic. So last week we talked about preparing in general, and we focused a bit on, it's an opportunity to now to know yourself. You don't need to just sit by the phone and wait for somebody to call you and then decide if that's a good job or not. You can think about where you've excelled in the past, what kind of environment you like, if you're attached to the mission of a particular set of companies, who those are. So you spent some time thinking about where you do well and why you do well and where you like to do well in the future. So that's the know yourself part. Of course, you've been working on your resume, so you want to have, when you get to the interview, a lot of interviewers will ask you questions off your resume. And so you want to have a brief comment and example, a comment and or an example for every declaration on your resume. So if you claim on your resume that you have great attention to detail, you need to be able to back that up. So somebody may just ask you, how do you know you have great attention to detail? And so you want to be able to tell them why and tell a story. You're prepared for questions about, and these are very common questions. We ask these in the pit crew. They come up in real interviews as well, about the tools you know, the processes you've run in the past, the relationships you have with your boss and your coworkers and your clients, where you claim expertise, your skills and abilities and knowledge, when you've made a mistake or not reached the goal, your achievements and successes. So while you're preparing to interview, you need to think about answers to questions about all of these kinds of things, right off your resume, but they may not come off your resume. They just may be questions. I think we have one panelist who likes to ask this question. It was a really good day. What happened? So there's a good question to think about. And of course, the opposite of that is, it was a really bad day. What happened? Have your library of star stories ready to go. So these are situations and tasks and the actions and the result that you have achieved. And when you're just getting prepared in general, I break your career down into 1 or 2 or 3 year segments, and then have your greatest achievement and your greatest learning experience for that. So you can start building a repertoire of star stories. But certainly you want stories about some of these questions, about your relationships, about your expertise, about what you do well, where you thrive, or maybe you struggle. And I highly encourage you to have some work product. So you've done that, you've developed some work product, and some of the things you've done in the past that you can share with your future employer. So we've got all of that done. And so now we're going to prepare for a specific interview.
So I base interviewing all on 3 things: on I am, I do, I help. So when we prepare for a specific interview, we want to also prepare for selling those 3 aspects of an interview. They hire us on our likability. That's a little bit oversimplifying the I am side, but I am says that my soft skills, my characteristics, my personality fit the culture of the company. The I do says my experience, my education, my certifications, my technical knowledge, things like that match the activities that I'll do in this role. And the I help is and so what happens as a result of who I am and what I do? What are the results that I can bring to you and how can I help you in this particular role? They hire us not to just be who we are, not to just do what we do, but more so including just how we can help them achieve what we're trying to achieve through this particular position. So I have an interview preparation worksheet that I suggest that we fill, and we start with our resume, and then, well, a particular job description for a specific interview. And it looks something like this. And so when your resume, you've got all your items listed on the left-hand side. If there's 5 soft skills, then there's 5 rows. And then each experience that you have has a particular, has also its own row. And so what is your experience? What kind of things did you achieve with that? And what was the value add, which is very similar, but in specifics? What specifically did I do? I can say I helped achieve goals. I increased revenue. All right. Those are good. But if I follow that with what specific amount of revenue I increased, that is better. And then an associated star story. So what we should have is a library of star stories that can demonstrate our soft skills, our activities, what we do, and the results of those. Then we can go to the job description, and each line item on that comes across. And then we say, okay, how does it fit? Now, a lot of that should be transferable from your resume. The more that transfers, the better the fit. Some people ask, well, what percent of a fit should I have to go to an interview? And I say, if it's a target company and it's a place that you like, it's the kind of job and role that you want, I would say the lower percentage, because do what you can do to get in, show them how you can help them and what you can do. Maybe they'll change the job description and create a job. So you don't have to have absolutely everything. And you can consider some job descriptions a wish list. I mean, I've seen some that just cover everything. In my last job, I looked at, they gave me an example of the topics of a performance review and how it would be measured, which is excellent. That really showed me what they wanted me to do for them. And I looked at it and I asked the interviewer, I said, has anybody done all of this? Because it looked like it was just an exhaustive list of things to accomplish. He said, well, no, not really, but there's certain things you can do and whatever it might be. So they kind of backed off just a little bit. But this is how you can help prepare so that when you get that specific interview, you've done this already in your preparation for any interview, then you can tie it to the specifics of that job description. At least it's a starting point of what we know now. So next is research. Well, when you've got to research, we suggest that you have target companies and you research them in advance, so that when you network into the target company and somebody wants to talk to you, you've already done your company research. You know about that company and you can demonstrate that knowledge. So look on LinkedIn for the employees, the industry. What do you know about the industry? How can you talk about that? What are the trends that are showing today? All that sort of thing is generic stuff that you can plan and prepare in advance, that when you get to that specific interview, you can select a few of the most critical and most important ones so that you're prepared for the specific one. So the more preparation you do towards the type of company, can you describe, let me ask you this question. Can you list the 5 top elements of the culture of your target company? What would that look like? Now, we ought to be able to answer that question. We ought to know what type of culture we're looking for so that we can find out if it's a match. I'm not sure a whole lot of us have done that kind of preparation, but that's an important one. Culture is good. Culture can override the other 2. If it's not a good place to work, doesn't matter what you do and how you can help. So we're going to do a greeting. A greeting is that statement of enthusiasm. It's an opening statement. It's something that's different than, well, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today. I look forward to having a talk with you today. And so the typical greeting is not very different, and it's not very strong, and we miss the opportunity to start selling who we are, what we do, and how we help. We need to prepare the answer to tell me about yourself. Mark's going to spend some more time on the opening and the closing and that sort of thing. I've listed them here. I'll let him spend more details on it. Do you know what your strengths are? And what do your strengths provide for them? A lot of us stop at our list of strengths. Some of us list our Clifton strengths and we say, I'm good on input, woo, and let's say, I don't know, there's a few terms in there that aren't obvious as to what they mean from Clifton. We ought to explain those things, but the power comes from with my attention to detail, my customer focus, my sense of urgency, and my business acumen. I can help you achieve these things, all right? And I list them, for example, and then I give a specific one. So that would be a lot stronger than just listing our strengths. So we want to attach star stories with strengths that we use. Look at your star stories and say, what strengths did I use in that, so that you can sell those as well during the story. Star stories are key and important. We're going to spend some time on those. What's that, the next session? Yeah, session 3 is star stories. So we'll spend a lot of time on them. They're very, very key to differentiation. Do your market research on salary. Know what the market pays for that job, that location, and that industry, so that you're prepared to go in with data and you're not guessing, and you have some idea of the value that you can bring through the interview process, asking them, what are their expectations? What do you expect me to achieve, etc. Then your questions list. We should always have some questions prepared. They have questions prepared for us, so what are our questions prepared for them? This, again, you can go back to the generic and say, okay, these are my top 5 or 6 or 7, 10 maybe questions that I like to know. And if I can get the answer to these, I can decide whether this is a good fit for me as well as a good fit for them. And so have some generic and have some specific. The generic ones are, what's the culture like? What's a typical work day? It's things that just have kind of very open response. The specific ones are you lead in with questions that you found out about the company. I was listening to your quarterly earnings report, and your CEO was commenting that, and I might even use his name or her name, that we need to develop more products with a higher margin. Well, tell me, what are the plans for accomplishing that? And why do I ask that question? Because I'm in product development. I can help you achieve those things. Let me find out which ones you're looking for, how you're trying to go about it, and then I can start having a conversation about that. So prepare some questions and kind of mix both of those. And you're going to do the second part about job with a little bit of research on the company. If it's a target company you've got in, you've already done that research and you're already prepared. And then have a first couple of questions that you should ask. Salespeople find out needs before they start selling. They listen to people. And so there's an I am question and I help question. I think Mark will cover some of that. But basically, who are you looking for and how can I help you? Are those types of questions we want to find out very early so we can start discussing those with them. And then the closing, I'll let Mark talk more about it. Here's kind of an outline that I have. He has an outline. Both are sufficient. Both are effective. I don't think there's just one way to do something, but showing interest in the job in the company, summarize the value that you bring that we've talked about and discussed today, making sure I understand the hiring process and update what the specifics of who, what, when, and where as I go through the process, find out where I stand, try to get some feedback on that. What are the specific next steps? Who's going to do it? When are they going to do it? Following up, when can I follow up with you? Those kind of things. We want to take charge of our job search, and then a very energetic and enthusiastic farewell. I can't wait to start. Can you show me my desk on the way out? Those kinds of things, depending on the strength of how much they want you and how strong the close can then be accordingly. And then lastly, practice. For interviewing, Mark and I live to help you practice. That is our purpose. The more practice you do, the better you get. we are sometimes a little bit nervous and a little bit anxious about practicing. We don't want to make mistakes. We don't want to err. We don't want to look bad in front of others. You're not that bad at interviewing. You do fairly well, but we can strengthen that interview through the practice and the feedback. We're on your side. We're on your team. We want to help you. The greatest news and things that Mark and I like to hear is when you land. All right. That we love hearing when people land. We want to help shorten your job search. So come and practice. It's not going to be a trial by fire. We're not going to shoot you. Security is not going to walk you out of the desk, out of the office. We're not going to do that. We're just going to give you some suggestions and thoughts and ideas for you to ponder. And then you're going to choose which ones you think are going to help you make the biggest difference and the greatest of selling who you are and what you do and how you help. Okay, a limited time. So now we get a call and they want to schedule an interview very quickly. So we're going to talk about that. And so my first idea about limited time is depending on the interviewer and what type of interview it's going to be. That means, is it a screening? Is it a panel? Is it somewhere down later in the process, early in the process, that sort of thing? We might be able to negotiate a later time and date. But the question is what is the risk for interviewing now or later? So here's a couple of things to think about. One is on their perspective. It takes sometimes a long time to get inside and works this, and they call you up and they want to interview and say, can you interview this afternoon? Can you interview tomorrow? Can you do that? We would like to have a chance to a little bit more preparation. So when I asked the question, would it be okay with you? Would it be possible to schedule that interview day after tomorrow? All right, one day later, just one day. See if they're amenable to do that. The objective is to get on the schedule. All right. If you're on the schedule and you can delay it some, that's great. If you can't, then we're going to go with the time and date that they set. So try to figure out how you can do that with that question. And then we want to get some basic information to help our preparation. So when they start calling us and scheduling us, what kind of basic information would we like to have? All right. All right. Depending on who's calling you is the factor in what kind of questions you ask. If it's a recruiter, you want to say, well, what's your relationship with the company? Maybe they're internal, maybe they're an agency, maybe they're a different, there's retained searches, and then there's those that are paid based on placing people there, the contingency companies. All right, what do you know about the company? What do you know about the hiring manager? What do you know about the culture? What do you know? Try to get some information from the requester before you just schedule something to help you focus on what you can prepare and use your time wisely. So get some of that basic information to find out how you can then prepare. So what you prepare depends upon this. How much time is the interview? I will always ask, what's the allotted time for an interview? When they schedule you. In my whole lifetime, one of the things that I did as soon as I became in a leadership role was that all agendas, all meetings will have a start time and an end time. Everybody knows the start time, and none of us knew what the end time was. So what are they planning for on the length of time? However, you might want to ask that question again towards the beginning of the interview because things change. They might have allotted an hour, but they only have 30 minutes now. But knowing that can help you say, all right, for 30 minutes, I'm only going to get to ask just a few questions. And here's the 2 or 3 that I might want to ask and make sure that I have. So depending on the amount of time that's allotted. What's the purpose? And so is this a screening or qualification? Is it a team? Is it just to see if we fit? What is it? What are they looking for? So the initial interviews are often screening interviews, but not necessarily. Okay. Some can go all the way from here. I've got a list of questions. I don't know anything about the job. I don't know anything about the culture. I don't know anything about the company. I just don't know. All I know is to get answers to these questions, and I'm going to give them to somebody else, and they'll ascertain whether we go forward to the next step. But when you're asking about the interview, you said, okay, and then you can find out, is it a team? Is it hiring manager, what's the role of the person? They probably won't give you the name, but you can certainly ask, who's the name, what's their role? That would give us a lot of good information to prepare. If I know I'm going to talk with a financial person, I'm going to prepare a little bit, some more questions maybe on the financial side, as I might prepare on the sales side, or on the operations side, or on the IT side, okay? Find if you can find that out. Another one is, what is that role of the interviewer? So are they the recruiter? And I mentioned those. Are they a team member? Are they a manager? Are they the manager's manager? What is it to know them? If you can get their name, that's great. Then you can look them up and find out something. Is there a common connection you can make? That's really nice to do and very important for moving you ahead in an interview process. And then what is the interviewer's expertise? What is their knowledge? This is where LinkedIn can come in handy if you can get their name, but you might want to find out at least what their role is. So if they're in one of these particular areas, you can tailor accordingly. So try to find that out. What is their communication method? So are they going to video over the phone? Is it going to be a video interview? Or are you going to meet in person? You want to know that. And the other thing that depends on is how much preparation and practice you've already completed. So the more you have done to say, okay, for this type of role, this is my opening that I would have. These are the star stories I could use. Here's the salary research. I've already done all that. That's going to make it much, much easier when you get that specific interview, because you can pick from that to specify time. Now, if you haven't done all of those things and you want to just say, okay, I haven't prepared any of that stuff, what can I prepare? We're going to help you a little bit with that today and say, here's some things we think you ought to spend your time on between now and the interview. Okay, let me go forward. So if you get a job description, and you always want to get one if you possibly can, then analyze that job description with the I am, I do, I help. Look for the soft skills that are listed. That's the I am side. Look for the activities that they are going to say you'll be doing. And then the I help. Sometimes we'll say that you do this activity ensuring, and whatever follows the ensuring is the value that that activity brings. I love it. Look at a lot of different job descriptions for the type of role you want in advance. See what most of those things are, what's the most common things, and then you can say, okay, let me prepare for the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of the most common things in advance. And then probably in the specific interview, you'll already have what you need. Then you research your interviewers. If you can get their names, find out a common connection is great if you can do that. What about the company? So to get some information about the company, at least a little bit. Go further than the web page, the first page, but definitely look at their culture, look at their values, look at the mission, look at their about statement. The about statement tells you a lot. So if you look at those 4 things, what you can find. Some websites, they'll say, they'll have employees give a testimonial. Listen to those testimonials, because that tells you something about the culture, what they like, what they enjoy doing, and what kind of things they achieve. Those are great if you can find that. What are their products? What do you know about their products? Go look at the news. What's happening lately? If they've got a news feed, what's going on? What kind of services they provide? Anything that you can find out about those particular items. Focus on those when you go into it with a limited time. Of course, you want to prepare your statement of enthusiasm, your opening statement. I'll let Mark do that. And at least have 5 relevant star stories. And session 3 is going to pay attention to those. And then tailor your questions. All right. Now, session 8, we're going to get into asking questions into more depth, more than just the 2 that we've talked about so far, and then the close. All right. Have some idea of how you're going to close.
So let's talk about limited time, because sometimes you do everything that Walt suggested and you delay the start time of the interview, and then life happens and you still don't have as much time as you'd like to prepare. And you probably are starting to get a good idea that there's a lot of things you could do to prepare. And if you don't get a chance to do them, that may generate its own set of angst. What if they ask me about this? And what if they ask me about that? I didn't have time. And so I'm going to simplify that a little bit and just say, here's what when I get contacted by people for a pit crew interview, sometimes they've waited too late, we're really busy, we're not going to be able to get them in. And so I'll offer to give them a little coaching. And so this is what I tell them. And when when the interview's tomorrow and they're trying to get prepared and they want to know what they should do. Your first priority is getting a good start. Okay, that seems obvious, but I mean, of all the things you could do, I want you to focus on the first 3 or 4 minutes of the interview. And so that starts with your greeting, and there's many different ways to have a greeting. You just say, hey, hello, and have a little small talk about the weather. I suggest, though, that you greet with the purpose, and that purpose is to start the discussion about your motivation. And so I suggest that your greeting be a statement of enthusiasm, and the statement of enthusiasm is focused on why you are interested in this position. Okay, there's other parts to the statement of enthusiasm. I'll talk about them in a minute. You're going to get to them in the first 3 or 4 minutes of the interview, but starting right off, you might want to say something like, hello, hiring manager. I'm looking forward to our conversation, and so on and so forth. I've had success in Scrum software development involving direct customer engagement that I believe will benefit your company. Okay, so you want to have in your statement of enthusiasm 2 specific reasons why you're interested in the job. And even when you meet the receptionist, for instance, you want to express your enthusiasm as part of your greeting. You don't have to list the specific reasons, but you can say, you're grateful for the opportunity to have this conversation with the company because you have a lot to add. And a lot of companies will ask that receptionist or the other people who interact with you while you're there what they thought of you. And the interaction may have only been a few short moments, but they still want to know what their first impressions were of you. Okay, the second part that comes most of the time is you'll get a chance to make an opening statement. It usually goes, tell me about yourself. If you Google interview questions, so let's say Google interview questions for project managers, this is going to be on the list. Tell me about yourself. So it's a very common question for the interviewer to give you a chance to make an opening statement. So here's how you want to cover that, and you want to be well prepared. And this is completely customized for this interview, right? You can't do this in a general way. So you want to have a brief, you want to start with your professional training. Some people are confused about where they start. So start with your professional training, any college education you have, military service, any languages you speak, and maybe one personal tidbit about yourself, like when you moved to Dallas, or what you do in your spare time, if you like to play tennis or go camping, or just a little personal note to personalize it a bit. Okay, so that's the professional training part of the opening statement. Then next is you want to take about 45 seconds to mention 3 relevant achievements. You're not going to tell them how you did this, but you will tell them what the achievement was. And these are things that they're going to be interested in based on the job description. So this is highly personalized to this engagement. 3 results from Star Stories that will highlight your ability to help the company. As Walt talked about, I do and I help. And so this is what I did. Okay. And then you're going to spend 60 seconds. So this is 2 minutes long in total. And it takes practice to get this down to 2 minutes and not throw in a lot of extra words that are confusing to the interviewer. It's a very focused statement of the preparation you've had professionally, some achievements that you want to talk about that they'll be interested in, and then finish out the motivation story and the how you can help story by talking about why you're interested in this company and why now. I just got a message that my connection's unstable. Did you guys hear all of that?
I heard it all.
You heard it all? Okay. So this is the motivation part B. Here's how I can be of help, and here's why I'm interested in this company and why now. Now, the why now is more than, I'm unemployed and the recruiter called me. And so that's why now. The why now needs to be even, you're on a new journey, the journey you were on may have been interrupted, but that doesn't mean the journey's finished, right? So if you're have a particular reason why you're interested in a company that continues your career, you need to describe that. You may be changing though. You may have decided that you want to move in a different direction, and so you need to explain that as well. It's going to be important to them why you're motivated to come to work, and it's going to count a whole lot in the end, because in the end, there'll be several qualified candidates, and they're going to have to make a decision between 2 or 3 eminently qualified candidates, and so the motivation will be very important. And you can handle it right up front. You can start planting those seeds. Now, the third part of getting a good start is asking a question early in the process. And so as soon as you finish your opening statement, I would say you want to be asking questions about what are the characteristics of top performers in this role? What problem are you trying to solve with this hire? So there's a whole series of questions. We talk about this more in session 6, openings and closings. And not very many people do this. Most people wait till the end of the interview. When the interviewer gives them permission to ask questions, they start asking questions. But you'll do much better in your interview, and you should practice doing this as well if you ask a question up front, especially if the interview is only 30 minutes long. You don't want to waste most of the interview time not knowing what they're buying. Okay, and so these questions, I say being exceedingly curious about what they're trying to accomplish, and then you can tailor your answers to demonstrate and show to them how you can help them accomplish what they're trying to accomplish. And this is critically important if you're not certain about the job description. And we have a whole session on job descriptions as well. Some are good, some are exactly what they're looking for. They're current. They were written a month ago, and they were written by the hiring manager, but most of the time they're not that way. They were written years ago. The current hiring manager only had minimal input, and so when you're in front of somebody who's going to make a hiring decision, you need to find out what they're buying. So that's getting a good start. And if you have just a small amount of time, this is what you want to focus on. Okay, you want to get off to a good start because it'll set the tone for the rest of the interview. And in particular, asking these questions sets the tone for having a conversation as opposed to an interrogation in this interview. Now, if you have some more time, you want to spend some preparation time about how you finish. And the opening, the getting a good start, and the finishing strong are connected. We talk about both of these in more detail in session 6. So we've covered the statement of enthusiasm, to tell me about yourself, and your first questions to find out what their needs are or to refine what was in the job description. The 3 things you want to do at the end, okay? And Walt just went over several things that you want to do at the end, but the 3 things you want to make sure you do if you have limited time to prepare is ask for feedback. And a very simple feedback question is, how do you see me fitting in? Or, do you see me fitting in? But you may want to ask something more specific. Is there anything that we need to discuss further? So on and so forth. We'll talk about that in session 6, but make sure you ask for feedback. This is your best opportunity to get feedback. It's in nobody's benefit in the hiring process to spend any time letting you know why you failed to go forward. They are entirely focused on finding the right person for their job. And so if you've had trouble getting feedback about why you didn't get hired, there's no upside to sharing that information with you. So the best time you're going to get it is to ask for it. And you may not get an answer, but you'll certainly get some reaction. That reaction may be very telling. Okay, ask for feedback. Ask about next steps, the hiring process, and points of contact. So this is all good. This may be a series of questions, but it's a topic. You want to understand what happens next, who you're going to hear from, when you're going to hear from them, how long you should wait before you reach back out, who you should call. So that's point 2. And then point 3 is close the deal. Summarize how you can help based on what they need because you've asked the questions and your successes, and ask to advance to the next step. Okay, it's important that this is also part of demonstrating your enthusiasm as you're eager to come to work here because they do things that fit into your career and that you're good at and you enjoy doing. And so you're eager to close this opportunity and move on as an employee. So make sure you communicate that. And that helps them, that alleviates any doubt in your mind that you're really interested in the job. Now, the third priority, I think if you got a good opening and a good closing prepared in advance, then you're 90% of the way there. In the middle, they're going to be asking you a lot of questions. It would be really good, but less, from a priority perspective, less important, especially if it's early rounds of the interviews, to ask them questions. But if you have time, you're going to prepare your questions, and it continues the dialogue. But it's important, I think, really important, that you ask those initial questions and getting the good start. Make sure you understand how the process is going to wrap up and do your statement of enthusiasm. And then the third thing to focus on would be what questions you want to ask, and based on your research about the company. Make sure you have your star stories. Walt mentioned this as well, but you want 5 that are customized for this interview. So, and customizing the star stories you want to tell means you've done some analysis of the job description, right? You've looked at the job description and you picked 5 things that you believe are the key things that they want to talk about, and you have stories to address those key things. Now, you may miss, you may not get all 5 of them correct. Okay, that's okay. You'll have 5 good stories to tell. And when you get to the interview, you'll ask those questions up front and you'll find out which one they're interested in the most, and you can tell those first. Okay, I mentioned this in the introduction, I think. 4 key questions to be well prepared for. Why are you here? Okay, that's the motivation question, and you're answering that in your greeting. Okay, why are you here? Why do you want this job? Why do you want to work at this company? What's the grander scheme of your career arc where we fit, where the role I have for you fits? Tell me about yourself. We talked about that a little bit here, more in session 6. That's getting a good start, your introduction. Why did you leave your last job? So this is one you want to have an answer for. This is the one I do coaching on. I'm not going to say much about it today. We cover this in session 10 as well. And if it's, let's you and I talk if this is going to be difficult for you. Most people, their company got into financial difficulty. They had to reduce staff and 50 people were laid off, or a location was closed. And so that's pretty straightforward. The only thing I would add to that is that you want to end on a positive note. So you want to tell the reason, and then you want to say something that you learned there or something that you achieved there that you're particularly proud of that's going to be relevant to your new job. So just end on a positive note. Don't just make it kind of an awkward thing, and don't refer to it as an unfortunate circumstance. It was unfortunately they had to lay me off. I hear that all the time. Well, as a hiring manager, that's not unfortunate to me. I mean, I'm sorry you're unemployed, but I'm trying to fill this new position and you may be the perfect candidate. So it's not unfortunate at all. From my perspective, it's an opportunity. And what are your salary requirements? Okay, so session 10, we'll focus on that. That's a whole long discussion, so I won't even make a comment about it. But that's one of the 4, and Walt mentioned it. Do your research, be prepared for when this question comes up, and then when we get to session 10, we'll talk about strategies to answer that question.
Okay, let me mention to you, we've referenced several sessions. Jeff will tell you more about the recorded sessions that already exist on these 13 topics. So as we reference them there, you can go out to those things and look at those particular sessions now. You don't have to wait 6 weeks till we get to a particular topic. I got a poll for you. we spend a lot of time applying online and looking for jobs and posting and things like that. So I'm interested in how you are looking at a particular week and how many days per week would you estimate that you spend posting based on job boards and what you've seen, that sort of thing.
Once again, for those on Facebook, you're welcome just to enter the A, B, C, D, or E in the comment field.
Let me ask you this. How many days per week do you spend? Oops, my poll covered up my question. Do you spend networking? Which activity do you think is the most productive? So in the chat window, put down either applying or networking. So we know from many researches and researching this, looking things up on the web, etc., is networking is much more productive than applying. Now, I'm not saying don't apply. I'm saying spend some of your time applying. And when is that time? Nights and weekends, okay? You can do that on nights and weekends. We do want to do some applying, but I wouldn't go more than about 15% of my time on applying because we only get about a 2% return. And that's a lot of time spent. It takes a lot of time to apply online. And that's a lot of time, and we just don't hear back, all right? Now, put yourself in the recruiter's shoes, in their frame of reference. How many job applications do you think Toyota got when they were hiring so many people when they relocated here? Okay, 3,000 per job. Now, that's a huge number. And these people are all over the country looking, move here, whatever, to work for Toyota. How do you handle that? And so our technology has caused a problem. Whereas before, we used to just send off resumes to companies. We would have target companies then. We'd send off resumes and look for some response back, put a cover letter together, and work it that way. But now we've got this technology that allows all these people to apply. And so the birth of an applicant tracking system came along because we just can't handle that many applications. So I can understand their perspective in their role, but it's more effective to spend our time networking. So there are a few stories of people who were found on LinkedIn. There were people who found by, not found, but responded to a posting. But those stories aren't frequent enough for the amount of time that you have to spend. So looking at this as networking. So we're spending a little bit of time on networking because it's such a key. You just can't talk about interviewing in a vacuum. I mean, you can, but there's more to it than that, and how there's some of the surrounding activities that support your interviewing are important to talk about as well.
This is my all things networking slide, and I made this slide after the first round because we talk about a lot of different concepts. We talk about, just networking, but the hidden job market and the applicant tracking system and informational interviews. But let me give you the introduction, and I'm going to try to go through this pretty quickly. This is the whole slide. I'm going to build it up for you. And along the way, we're going to talk about the hidden job market, and we're going to talk about the ATS black hole and your chances of getting hired by what kind of recruiter, and how to have more effective interviews through this process. Your goal is to get to the finish line, and you see the little guy driving the green car on the left, that's you. So you're going to go around this circle with me, and I'm going to hit all those topics. And then when we're done, I hope you understand that how networking is connected to all of these things and how it's going to increase your opportunities and give you a better chance to be selected once you make an application, and why you need to focus on it, basically why you need to do it if you're one of those who don't already spend 4 or 5 days doing it in a week. Okay, so let's just start off. You start your job search, you need to network, you start talking to your contacts. Some of these contacts are likely not people that you know very well, because you really want to cast a very broad net when you're trying to find a job, because you just don't know who people know. Walt will talk about this more in the degrees of separation between you and somebody on Facebook. But you just don't know, and we hear stories all the time, Walt and I, because we're kind of in the business of helping people land, of how fortunate things happen just by talking to people. I got one of the, just real briefly, the one Tom Kilbane, who's back in the job search, but he wanted to go in and get into selling houses, and so he just started going around to the sales offices at these housing establishments, and he walked into one, and he happened to meet, he didn't know at the time, but he happened to meet the VP of HR for David Weekley Homes, who was so impressed with his initiatives that she started helping him shepherd his resume through and his interviews through the company, and they hired him, and he did really well with David Weekley Homes. All got started because he took the effort to go out and network with strangers. So when you meet people, I call them contacts. You may not know them very well, and but a few of them, when you meet them, and are going to become more than just contacts, more than just somebody you happen to meet at a networking meeting. They may be people that you know from your church or from your kids' activities, but they know you, they have something in common with you, and so they're going to be more than just a contact. They're going to become a connection or a supporter or a champion or an advocate, because they're more vested in you being successful in finding your job. So these people who become more connected to you, let's say, what you start to build a relationship with, give you access to the hidden job market. So they're thinking about you, and when an opportunity comes up, they may give you a call. And the important thing about networking is they can come from anywhere. J.R. Better speaks on networking, and if you get a chance, you should get an opportunity to listen to him. But he met someone, he was an avid cyclist, and so he talks about the networking he did while he was cycling, and that led to him finding a new career. So that's just a random person he met during a event. The connection was he was wearing a t-shirt for I think it was for some cancer, a race, that was for a cancer charity. And so this guy saw him and struck up a conversation with him, and ended up helping him out. So that was just a random contact who became a connection because they were connected through this cancer society. So they give you access to the hidden job market. The hidden job market is pretty big. It's probably at least 3 times as big as the posted job market. And I like to explain it this way because I have personal experience when we used to do strategic planning, which we did once a year. We do it in October, and it was for the next calendar year. And we say, okay, we're doing really well here, and so we need to grow our business, and we need to hire some people. And so we'll hire some in the first quarter. If the first quarter still looks good, we'll have some more in the second and third and fourth. So we'd make a strategic plan to hire, let's say, 20 people next year. That was contingent upon our business continuing to go well. So when the first quarter came around, 4 of those 20 people would be posted up, and we'd start trying to fill those positions. But we knew that there were another 16, for the remainder of the year behind there. And it does happen when a good candidate shows up that might be better targeted for one of those later positions in the year. They can be an advanced. Okay, the company can go through the effort to bring that job requirement up earlier in the year and go ahead and fill that position. So that's an example of how the hidden job market is 3 times as big as the posted job market. And there's other examples as well. There's confidential searches that just aren't posted at all. There's some companies who prefer to find their employees through networking, through people their recruiters meet or people their employees refer, and they don't spend the money. They probably don't spend the money because they don't think it increases the quality of their candidates, that they get better candidates through networking and internal referrals. But so those jobs are not posted at all. The only way you find out about them is you meet someone who tells them about them, or you develop a connection who supports your candidacy. So that's one of the first benefits of networking, is getting access to job openings that other people don't know about, and building supporters, champions, and connections, people who will help you navigate through the hiring process at a particular company. Now, when you meet people and you're doing your networking, you're going to ask them, I'd suggest you make a very simple ask, right? You're going to tell them a little bit about yourself, but when it comes time to, separate, you say something to the effect of, hey, I'm a project manager and I'm looking to go to work at company, let's name a company, Toyota, okay? Toyota's on my target company list. Do you know anyone, or maybe know someone who knows someone who works at Toyota that I could talk to? So that's a very simple ask. All you're asking for is a name. You haven't been very specific about exactly what you're looking for. You just want somebody to talk to. And so that leads to informational interviews. So you take that information and you leverage it into inside information about the company by calling up those people. And we have a whole session, I think it's 11 that I mentioned, session 11, where we talk about how to do that. And now what that does for you is you have the opportunity. So this name is a contact initially, right? So you call them up and you convince them to spend 15 or 20 minutes with you and answer your questions, because they have some insight that you might benefit from. And so you can also then develop supporters and champions and connections inside a company. So it might be a bit of a random thing, but you're going to meet people if you start doing this who may have gone to the same college, you may have worked at the same places that you worked in the past, that you have something in common with, and that's kind of the key ingredient to building a connection or a supporter or a champion, is you have something in common and they take up your cause and they give you access to the hidden job market at their company. But also through just asking the questions that you're going to ask through these informational interviews, you gain information and insight that other people may not know about the company. So that puts you ahead in the interview process. Okay, you'll have additional information that other people don't have about how the company works from the inside. So this becomes important now when you find a job that looks good. And so you may have to apply for it, but you may not. You may just see it posted. You can call up one of your contacts inside that one of your connections, not just a contact, but one of your connections that you developed inside the company, and say, hey, this job looks like a great match for me. I think you could help me out. Would you like to be the one who sponsors me? And so depending on the company, the employee may sponsor you directly by taking your resume into the recruiting organization or to the hiring manager, or you may still have to apply. And then once you're in the system, they can go in and notate that they can give you a reference. But either way, an employee referral through a recruiter who works for the company, or through an employee who's not in the hiring cycle, not in the recruiting organization, puts you in a completely different category, and it's pretty amazing. And so the research that Walt alluded to says that if you just apply in the blind and you don't have anybody sponsoring you, or you don't have a reference inside the company, you've got about a 2% chance of being contacted for that position. If you are a referral or get sponsored, you have a 50% chance of being contacted. So it's dramatically different. And I've heard stories. I was curious about this. I've asked a few people that this has happened to, what does that mean? That you got a 50% chance of being contacted. Most of the time that means you go directly to a first round interview. That's anecdotal. I don't have any data on that, but I've asked a few people who got referred in. We've had some stories that came through the pit crew where somebody applied for a job. 6 months later, they find out that somebody they know pretty well from their past work works there. So they reestablish connection and catch up. And then they tell this employee that they applied for this job 6 months ago. And so the employee goes in or, does whatever's necessary, contacts HR and lets them know that they know this person, and, immediately they move into a different category and they're now on track to have an interview after 6 months of sitting inside the application tracking system because there wasn't anybody sponsoring him. So that happens. It's happened more than once. Now, the other important thing I want to make clear about networking is networking with internal recruiters is a good idea. And I've got some stats there that say of 100 job postings, about 40 of them are filled by internal recruiters through their own connections. And so through their own connections means people they've talked to or people that are referred by employees. Okay, so a secondary connection to a recruiter would be somebody who's referred by an employee. A first degree connection would be somebody they've talked to. So don't be shy if you're a good match for a job to reach out to the internal recruiter and tell them that. Tell them that you believe you're a good match for the job and that you're applying. Okay, and they'll take a look. That'll kind of move you to the top of their list. Now they'll do their own due diligence, but if it turns out that they agree, then you've made a connection with them and they're going to, put you on that fast track, and you'll be just that much further ahead. So relationships with internal recruiters are good things, and should be nurtured and developed. And when we get back to meeting face to face and get a chance to go to job fairs, that's a good place to meet face to face, to meet recruiters as well. Now, interestingly enough, when we're talking about internal recruiters, about 10% of jobs are filled through candidates who are in their ATS. So the ATS has some value. Okay, as Walt said, it's just out of balance with the success you're going to have through that avenue. And so, but if you're in the ATS, and especially if you're in the ATS and you've had a conversation with the recruiter, they can go to the ATS and then take a look, refresh themselves on your candidacy and see if you're a good fit. And then the final spec there is about 20% of jobs, posted jobs, are filled by agency recruiters, outside recruiters, third-party recruiters. They're all one and the same, and they have a similar process, and it's mostly based on their first and second level connections in the agency world. And maybe some of you had these agency recruiters call you up and ask you if you know someone who might be a good fit for the job, and they may think you're a good fit for the job, but if you're not, they'll accept a referral and they'll go off and pursue them as well. So you've done your informational interviews, you've been employed by the referral, you become a preferred candidate. As I mentioned, the informational interviews has given you insight that other candidates don't have, so you can interview more effectively. And this cycle, leads to a positive outcome more often than not for you, as opposed to the other candidates that you're competing against. You get to exit stage left with the checkered flags.
So what that slide says, the one you got on right there, Mark, going back to yours, is if I were to look at that, I would say how to prepare for an interview. I mean, here is a whole technique of preparation and things that we can do. So why does networking fit into interviewing? It's because of all the preparation that allows us to accomplish so that we can be more effective in our interviews. And so It's a great slide. It talks about the cycle and how we can do that. So there's wonderful things out there for us to use and to see which ones are the most effective and most productive. Okay. So let's do a few statistics about networking. Go ahead and click. You can click them all. We'll go through them. 70 to 85% of jobs are not posted. So you hear this many, many times. And so I ask myself the question, if I am driven by job postings, I'm missing a huge proportion of the market for jobs by just replying to that. So somewhere between the 15 to 30%, all right? That is not a very productive thing. Still do it, but not all the time. Use 10, not 15% of the time, nights and weekends. It's interesting that the amount of time that job seekers spend surfing the net is huge. We're looking on the net. Now, there's two things about surfing the net. If you're surfing for job positions, that's the less effective thing. If you're surfing for information about companies, about industries, about people you can connect with, that's a good thing. So depending on what you're surfing the net for is plus or minus. 40% of jobs are filled through referrals. And of those landing jobs, networking dominated the search, all right? But only 7% of job searchers use referrals. So if I'm a company and I'm looking to hire somebody, we have a position for whatever reason, what do? I ask around in the company, is there an internal candidate that might fit this role? I'll start looking there. But you know, the good thing about internal candidates is when they found that position, then they got to fill the one that was vacated. So there's still open positions when that happens. Then they go to their internal ATS system. They look and see on their history, is there somebody out there? That's why if we can find a referral, put some information in, there is a job maybe that's posted that's similar out there, we can put our resume on their applicant tracking system. It's our targeted company. Then they can find us there. So you don't just apply everywhere, but the best thing to do, Jack Bick says in his coaching, he's a career coach, says, don't ever apply online until you have the referral and the connection inside. And then they say, well, you got to go through the applicant tracking system and use our process. Well, it doesn't matter then, you're already selected, you're picked. They just have to go through the process to get there. So that's the most effective way. Let's go ahead, Mark. So what do you do prior to networking? All right, what do I need to have at my hand? What's my preparation? You need to have this unique value proposition. Jack Bick, our one of the career coaches in the neighborhood, says you have to have a unique selling proposition, a USP. It's 5 to 7 words. Okay, what is it that you do? I help job seekers gain skills and confidence for successful hiring interviews. All right, that's what I offer to people as to how to help you improve that for a successful interview, defined by you've presented yourself and who you are, what you do, and how you can help in a good fashion. The 30-second commercial is kind of on its way out. I'm not a real strong proponent of the 30-second commercial, but I am strong about once you have that unique value proposition, and you say that, then you can say, for example, I have coached over 1,000 people in their job search, all right? Something that gives a little bit more meat to the value that you bring. Of course, you need a resume. I suggest you have a master resume with bullets under each one that show achievements, not just I led this or I did this or responsible for, but have some achievements in it. Then I set that aside, then I pull it in and I look at a job description and I start tweaking that master resume. I remove some of the bullets, only want 2 or 3, and I put the most important bullets up front. So I just change it around, but I'm still consistent with what's on LinkedIn with other information I have out there. I really suggest strongly that you have a bio. That's strong in networking. It doesn't say I'm looking for a job, but it says, here's who I am, here's what I do, here's how I can help in a bio, so that when I'm talking to somebody to use as a referral, they have something they can take to someone. And it's not a resume that says I'm looking for a job. It says I'm looking for information, I'm looking for advice, these types of things in my career search, that sort of stuff. And then they kind of turn back to us and ask us about things. Said, well, I do have a bio if you want to send. And if they want to take your bio or take your resume, then fine. You can send the resume along with it. But the bio would be a great tool to have. And your attributes, achievements, inventory. All right. Your soft skills and what you've done, a list of those. And then your achievements are the R's in your star story. Have your references prepared and ready. Do your due diligence on your references. Find out what they would say about you. Tell them when you get an interview that they might be contacted, and here are some of the things that you would like them to emphasize about you, which are included in the things they know about you. Right? I used to say, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And I think that still is appropriate a lot. Your energy, enthusiasm on how you state things, the look on your face, the smile, that thing. It's not what you do, but how you do it. So I think that has some appropriate application. And it's not what you know, but it's who you know. And I used to have those three things, and I've added the fourth. And Jack strongly agrees with this. It's not who you know, but who knows you. So there is our network. Who are the people that know us? How we can help them talk about us, guide them, help them. Don't make anyone work very much to help you. So have your references, have your prioritized target companies. So there's I know that I think Jeff has a recording on his North Dallas Plano focus group on Fridays from Kip Lifson and Mike Ray on reference solutions on how to find the target companies. The reference solution is a good tool through your library. It costs a lot to access it yourself, but if you get a library card and the library has either the reference solutions or the A to Z databases, that can help you with target companies. And then research your potential connections. I thought I removed that crystal nose at this point in time, Mark, but I guess I'll somehow it's snuck back in there.
Get rid of
right? Yeah. But anyway, the main thing to do is that if you can look up on LinkedIn the people you're going to interview with, find out about them. I'm kind of amazed at the people that send me a message on LinkedIn to say, I'm interested in your workshop. Can you give me more details? And I'll reply back and I'll say, see my about section. Why wouldn't you look somebody up before you talk to them and know something about them? I think that's just kind of common sense. So yeah, find out that information. So you're never not working, not networking. You're always networking. You're always showing an image of yourself. You're always displaying some sort of message. So you want to target people inside of target companies, inside of target industry segments. So there's different segments. Travel has airlines, it has trucks, it has all kinds of different things, ships, different kinds of things inside the transportation industry, for example. And the 6 degrees of separation, we talked a little bit about that, Martin mentioned it. I'll give you a couple of stories about the 2 links and their 50% chance of success, which causes us to ask the question, not only do you know somebody, but do you know somebody who may know somebody inside this company? So story number 1 is this person wanted to get on with the George Bush Foundation here in Dallas and was unsuccessful in doing so, and was working at a volunteer effort doing something. I think they were cooking, they were doing some food. And so she mentioned to the person next to her that said, yeah, I wanted to get on with the George Bush Foundation. And by what name? And he said, oh, you should have told me. We go on vacations with the Bushes every year. I mean, and so you just don't know who knows who. You've heard that so many times, but it's absolutely true. The second story is going to tell you why it is not amazing that a couple of people are all you need to get to somebody. It's just not amazing. We think it is. It isn't. Statistics are on our side. The chances of finding somebody who knows somebody. All right. So yesterday, I'm going to go way back in my past. So my memory is pretty good for 24 hours. So I'm going to use yesterday's example. So we're in the interview workshop, and we have Lindsay and Stephen. And Stephen is saying, well, I've got I'm going to go to a coaching, do some coaching stuff, and I'm going to get with Tommy, last name, and we're going to talk about refereeing and all that kind of stuff. And Lindsay says, Tommy? Well, she was a volleyball player at Baylor University back about 15 years ago or so. And, oh, Tommy, yeah, he's a great friend, And I had to interrupt and say, guys, can you take this offline? We got to talk about interviewing. But the look on Lindsay's face was this eyebrow, it's I love this when you, in an interview, they do the raised eyebrows. Okay, that means above expectations, all right? And the open mouth is, wow, Tommy. And she couldn't believe that he knew Tommy. And I said, it's not amazing at all. That's very common. Use that statistic to your advantage through the networking process. It's fantastic. And guess what? If I asked you for help and if I said, I'm interested in some advice for my career, would you be interested in spending 15 minutes with me? I really value the knowledge and the experience and expertise that you have. Would you say no? The probability is that you'd say yes. Now, people in the job search mode are a little bit more helpful than when we're in the busy mode in the working side of things. But people love to help others. We have to learn how to let people help us. We think it's something wrong with that. There's something wrong with it. No, it's not. It just depends on how you ask it. If Mark's had many people stand up in the picture back when we were meeting back in the face-to-face, and they said, well, I'm looking for a job in North Dallas. All right. Well, how many people do you think ran out and started looking for a job in North Dallas for that individual, right? Help them. I'm looking for this type of role in this type of company. Do you know someone or know somebody who knows somebody in that company? Then when we reach them and say, I'm just doing some research. I'm just trying to find out some information. I'm very interested in the company. Could you spend some time giving me some advice and suggestions, perhaps, that would help me in my career search? I need 20 minutes. All right. You're going to get some no's. It's still some of the final thing, but that's amazing statistic that you can reach people, and it's amazing that people will help you. And then all of a sudden you say, no, it's not all that amazing at all. Next. So we have to qualify our contacts and our connections. So let me talk a little bit about them. LinkedIn calls all the people in your network a connection. And so I want to change that definition a little bit. I would say that most of the connections we have are probably contacts. And I call a contact as someone that, what do we know about them? What do we really know about them? And what do they know about us? All right. I get some of these generic requests on LinkedIn. Hi, Walt, I'd like to join your network. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you do. I don't know anything about you. Do I want to go out and spend the time to look you up on LinkedIn and find out and understand and all that sort of stuff? No, I don't want to spend much of my time doing that. But if you send that personal note that says, hi, Walt, I heard you on the Wednesday afternoon on the workshop or something like that, I would enjoy connecting with you. And so then that's all that's necessary. Mark says, send me a personal note. So always send a personal note. I don't care if you even know people. Send a personal, it's a differentiator. It's not the generic thing. It's not like I'm doing the least amount of effort to try to connect with you by just clicking on something and taking the default. That's not the message we want to send. And then when the connection happens, you thank them for connecting with you. Isn't that amazing? We send a thank you note. Anytime you talk with somebody, thank them for talking with you. Send thank you notes. Appreciate. I got a girlfriend now, and her daughter, I was over at their house, and her daughter made some chocolate chip cookies, of which I devoured 2 of them quite rapidly. And that afternoon, I spent a little note, said, hey, thank you for the chocolate chip cookies. They were excellent. All right. I mean, she's in the kitchen, she's cooking, she's doing something. It's a little thank you note to appreciate you in the cooking. How much, for those of you that cook, how many of you get much appreciation for the job you do cooking? Wouldn't it be nice to get a little thank you? Wouldn't that stand out? All right. So when you make a call, look at your connections and rank them. Let me say this. Look at your connections and rank them about who knows you and what the relationships are between you. High relationships, those are good. But not all high relationships are willing to help. Some are and some aren't. So rank them according to their potential of being able to help you. Then talk with them and see what they might do. Use them as a reference or whatever might be one of the things you're talking about. So your connections really are the strengths of the relationship. A connection has some relationship. A generic connection from an unknown source has 0 relationship. So those that you do have a relationship with. Those are the ones that we want to spend our time with effectively in our job search. Helping them is part of networking. Herman Bombeck says, guilt, the gift that keeps on giving. And that is when I help someone, there's a tendency for someone to want to come back and help me. That's kind of the culture we live in. They feel like they owe us something. Of course, when people say that to me, I say, just pay it forward, help somebody else. That's how you can help me. I'm okay. You don't need to send me the $500 check, but if you want to, you can go ahead and send it to me. It's all right. I've learned how to accept those if you want to do that, but certainly not required and not requested. So calls. So if we make cold calling is some of the things we need to do. All right. But why don't we at least make it a cool call by at least having a referral source? And so, Ruben, I see you right now on the screen. You're right below my camera, so I get to look at you to help me look into the camera. And so I call, and Ruben says, oh, yeah, I know somebody over at Toyota. Here's the name. Tell them that I indicated to call you. So I call on my cool call. It says, hi, this is Walt Glass. I was talking with Ruben, and he suggested that I give you a call. Then you give the purpose of the call and whatever it might be. But that's the cool call. So the referral source did refer you, but it's fairly passive. I'm not going to do anything else in that arena. The warm calls are the good ones, the better ones, and the best ones. The good ones are when they say, yeah, let me email my contact and I will copy you on it. And I'll say, hi, want to introduce you to Walt. He has, and I'm going to have some information for Ruben to tell about me. A couple of things about me in that email. I'll help him with that. So would you specify a couple of things? Don't have to make Ruben generate that content. Help him with that, specifically about this. And he'll be contacting you. Now, the better ones would say, let me get together and I'll have a meeting. So I'll have a conference call or I'll set up a Zoom call and I'll introduce you. Or when we can do it in person, I'll come into the office and you'll take me down to another office. Hi, I would just want you to meet Walt. He's already set it up. I'll have a few minutes to talk. That is even a better one. And then the best no, I'm sorry, that's the third way. The best one is when they do that. The better one is when they say, hey, I'd like to set up a meeting for you to be contacted and actually get it scheduled. Now, I know a few people who, when I have contacted them and said, hey, he works out at, where does he work? I can't remember. But I've sent him some information and I said, here's somebody, they're looking at this and whatever. Would you be willing to talk to them? I always ask for permission before I give that his contact information to the candidate. And every time, there's two things that have happened. One is very interesting. I never hear from the person who requested connection any feedback. Now that's concerning because you owe it to the people who helped you to call them back or connect with them and tell them how they did help you, right? We're missing a great opportunity to build a relationship with that person. We're actually, I think, damaging the relationship by just, I get an email that says, thanks, and that's it. That's all I hear. I would love to hear how it came out. And the second thing about this person is he does not wait for the contact to call him. He calls them, right? He's anxious to help. He's been through the job search stuff. He's interviewed quite a few times at PitCrew. He's interviewed quite a few times here. He's practiced. He's done his thing. He's got his job. He's loving what he does. But he also loves helping people. There are those guys out there. So evaluate a person's potential to help. Is it high, medium, or low? And perseverance is going to be required. Anything else? I got to finish up right quick because we're over time. Relationship building methods. LinkedIn, I mentioned the personal invitation. Thanks for connecting. The follow-up, all right? How can I help you? Ask people how you can help them, all right? And nurture that connection. Next. And finally, remember, nurture your network. Keep in touch. Don't only contact people when you need help, right? Find out things where you can help them through this process. The golden rule of reciprocity. And remember, you connect with people in their world, not yours.
All right, so that was pre-recorded. We didn't take any breaks for questions. I know there were a few questions that popped up in the chat window. One of them was how to stop the ums and ohs and, you know, whatever. And somebody said, you know, go to Toastmasters. I definitely agree. If you want to perfect your speaking abilities by joining a Toastmaster group, number one, it's a great place to network at because you can find groups that are specifically in your areas at certain companies. So it's a great opportunity to be able to do that. So Toastmasters is definitely recommended. Would somebody, let's see here. Somebody said, what if it is a bot interview? If you would like to do a one-way bot interview, we have the ability to do that. Reach out to me and I'll send you a link and you can take a one-way interview and then you can go back and watch it. I won't watch it. I'll just send you the link when it's done. But it's a great opportunity to sort of get used to those one-way interviews when there's nobody at the other end. They, you know, HR department says, here's a link, follow this link, and we can do the exact same thing. I have a company that's donated the services to us. So if you'd like to be able to practice doing that, you can reach out to me and I'll be glad to do that. Let's see what other questions we had here. Somebody said, would you put in the chat the wording for the 2 questions to ask early in the interview? Number one, what characteristics are you looking for in the ideal candidate? The way I like to term it is after you've given your 2-minute opening statement is, got a question for you. It's 6 months from now, you hired me, I did an outstanding job. What are the 3 or 4 things that I did that just blew you away? Because now you put in their mind that they've already hired you, they put in their mind they must have liked you, you put in your mind that they like you and you know you did a good job. Now you get them to do it. And you almost need to ask this to everybody, every different person you interview with, because everybody's going to come to that answer with a different perspective, because depending on where they are, what they need, what they think you need to do to succeed in their eyes. So it's a good question to ask every time in some sort. The other one was, what problems are you looking to solve? Remember, you're a problem solver. Companies don't hire employees because they have extra money and they're just looking to stuff the payroll with employees. They have a problem to solve. You need to solve that problem, whether it be, I need somebody just to answer the phones Monday through Friday. I need somebody to close the books once a month. I need somebody to take this project and run with it. Whatever it is, you're a problem solver. Find out what their problems are and address those situations. That would be a big, big help. Let's see what else we got on here. Somebody says, is there a worksheet? Is there an interview preparation worksheet? There isn't one that I know of. Nobody's ever put one together. So if somebody wants to put one together, things that you think you should do. I've gotten on Mark's case about putting together his book, because this interviewing series would make a great book, but I can't get him to sit down and type all the information up. All right, so Roseanne said, what was the pre-recorded date so I can go back and rewatch? This video will be back up just like you saw today. It'll be on YouTube and it'll be up on the YouTube channel in a couple hours. So even though this is a recording from May, this will go up as a new recording today because I've gone and edited some things out. The video actually was a little bit longer. So are there any other questions that people have before I put up a few closing slides? If you've got a question, please just unmute your mic. Going once, going twice. All right, well, let me go share a few closing slides here and then we will get out of here. Career DFW, Career USA, we're putting on training 4 days a week now. So please join us tomorrow, Thursday, on the second and fourth Thursday, we're doing networking. Networking used to be on Monday. We have a great presentation tomorrow. The secret weapon to simplify your networking efforts. What is that simplified tool? You'll find out about it. You'll see some examples tomorrow. So join us. Sonia Lowry is the vice president at Lee Heck Harrison. So she teaches these people every day on how to do these things. So please join us tomorrow at 1 o'clock. This Friday at the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group meeting, I know Walt talked about, there was a video about how to find target companies using reference solution. Well, our speakers this Friday will be talking about that. So if you want to try to figure out who your target companies are and where to find target companies, join us this Friday morning at 9:30. Next Tuesday for LinkedIn Tuesdays, how to use LinkedIn for job hunting, strategies to get results. On Wednesday, our interview session next Wednesday will be session number 3, Star Stories, a deep dive. Very, very important when you go in for an interview that you want to tell stories that have a situation, the task, the action you took, not what the team did, but what did you do, and a result, telling results. So we'll talk all about that next Wednesday. And then next Thursday, it'll be the 3rd Thursday of the month. So we'll be talking about resumes, strategies to beat the ATS system with Rex Sayat. So this session has been recorded. It will be on the Career FW Facebook page. It'll be on the Career USA YouTube channel. Give it about 2 hours for it to get up on YouTube. It takes a little while for it to load up there. On the YouTube channel, it looks something like this. You can click on playlist, easiest way to do it, where that red arrow is, and then down the very bottom, pick whatever title, whatever playlist you want. And don't click on the video, but click where it says view full playlist, where that green arrow is. And then up will come a list of all the different sessions. And you can go back and watch all the sessions that have already been recorded. So I know they talked about today some, this will be in session 6, this will be in session 8. You can go watch any of those because they're all loaded up on the website right now. So if you're not receiving emails about our workshops and you'd like to join the Career USA mailing list, you may do so by sending an email to Career USA, the + subscribe at groups.io. I know we had one person already do that today. But if there's anybody else, if you're not finding out about these workshops, you'd like to get the daily email every day. The nice thing about the email is you'll never be spammed, but what you will get is the topic of the day, the title of the day, and the Zoom link for the day. So it'll be easy for you to just click on the Zoom link and join us. Please remember, Career FW, we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We have no full or part-time employees. Walt's a volunteer, Mark's a volunteer, I'm a volunteer. Everything I've done over the last 13 years has been strictly to help you land your next opportunity. Career FW survives on donations. Please consider making a donation when you get your next job. So thank you for joining us today. Have a great week, and hopefully we'll see you later this week.